She would put on her underwear and run home to hide her secret from her husband. But what was the secret? Today, we will tell you life stories and accounts of how wives are forced to use different ways to take pity on their husbands. Are you ready to find out the truth? I want to tell you a very ambiguous story, although some might not call it ambiguous. It was about a kiss, and you can say 100 years ago, which resulted in a worse than nuclear war. To help you understand the whole picture, I am 40 years old, my wife Elizabeth 36, and of course, has a child 10 years old. Everything is fine with money, and so on. The beginning of the whole story, if, of course, you can believe my dear wife, was one evening on February 23. Our colleagues in the organization and I, of course, congratulated each other. A little by the evening, we celebrated the whole thing in the workplace. The girls at work set the table for us. I call my wife. Liz, we are here. Well, this is the very little. If you have a chance, after work, come straight here for me. We'll celebrate here a little bit. Well, you can pick me up and drive, so I don't have to leave my car here. I'm good. If I'd known how this simple request of mine would end, I wouldn't have drank at all, and I would have picked up whoever and wherever I wanted at once. Long or short, the dinners at work that night were also a humbling event. They were there too, congratulating the staff. In general, we had more bottles of cognac that evening than expected, and some of our young people here began to play the bottle. Well, like young people play, and we are older just for fun. We are sitting. Anyway, I think it's time to write to my wife. Where are you? She's texting me. I'm getting in a cab. I'll be right there. Okay. I take some more cognac, stand closer to the exit. There's a window, at least to get some air. And the sleeves on my shirt, of course, are already rolled up. Mine and everyone else's is fine. All of a sudden, one of our youngest madams comes up, and she calls me by my name and patronymic. Anyway, there's that bottle there pointed at me. And she kind of has to kiss me here. And in general, not really expecting an answer from me, takes my chin right with two hands and kisses me, without taking away from me and turning her head to the staff. Well, sort of, so that they can see that she has completed this task. Well, as you have already realized, of course, at this point my wife walks in as well. Oil painting. We're kind of standing there with this madam, just the two of us. It all looks like we've stepped away from the collective for some business. We both smell of alcohol. Well, the last moments of the kiss, I think the wife saw perfectly well too. I pretended as if nothing had happened. There really wasn't anything going on. I had nothing to do with it. But it wasn't. While Lisa and I, my wife and I were in the car, we were talking as if nothing had happened. In fact, I figured we'd probably talk tomorrow, if we talked at all. And for nothing. The next day, my wife was already blacker than a cloud. I somehow explained to her what it was. And after a couple of days, she, kind of believed me. I exhaled. But it turned out far from that. A month goes by to 6 months, and every time, on occasion, and without it, my wife immediately reminds me of this case. And because of these reminders, fight more. I told her if she did not forgive me, she could have told me so, instead of forgiving at first and then reminding me every day. As soon as I said that and got really angry, she immediately took a step back, saying that she was kidding and that she would relax. But if the quarrel again, she immediately reminds me of it all again. In short, found a string, how to act on the nerves. Here, so to speak, as it is impossible, I turned out to her something like a promotion. She had been working in a jewelry store, and after an employee in their larger office went on maternity leave, Elizabeth was offered the job. The neighborhood was a little farther from home, but the pay was higher, and so on. I generally agreed without asking me, and the schedule was from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the schedule was 3 days through 3. I, by the way, paid attention at once. It was the first time I had ever heard of such a schedule. but later found out what kind of schedule, well, what hobbies. Except work, there were dinners. Anyway, it's been a year and a half. And then she walks into our lounge in the evening and says, "I'm sick of it all." At first I thought the conversation was about work. "You don't give me any time or attention at all." Well, don't make promises that you will now. You're an adult. You can't be changed. I've made up my mind. I've been thinking for a long time. In short, the point is that I have to go out now. Of course, I'm shocked. The next day I try to talk again, and she is not, all in the same spirit. Torture my presence. To cut a long story short, I was not going to torture anyone. I decided to go to a friend's house for a couple of weeks, at their empty house. It happens that people get bored with each other, and as a result, we make up. But it turned out to be much more interesting. We are sitting with a friend at this dacha, and with his encouragement, we come to the conclusion that there is something for a reason. It has been a week and a half. The wife, in terms of communication, doesn't even scratch the surface. Yes, and crowned, we need a break from each other. In such stories usually means something else. Anyway, I think, well, did someone show up? My friend definitely thinks so. And in my brain, at once resurfaces schedule 3 days and 3. Long or short, it looks like she has someone. And that someone is connected to her at this exact time. 3 days and 3, from 9 in the morning until 8 at night. What to do? I called the next day at my wife's to talk. But no, she stayed in the position she was in. We'll take a break from each other, but we'll decide sometime later too. Yeah, sure. But anyway, there's nothing to do. I take my friend's car and drive right up to the driveway at 8 in the morning, so I can actually see where she's going and when. She gets out in the morning, jumps in a cab, and goes to this job of hers. I walk her there, driving to mine. Then in the evening, I decide to go to her place again and see who will give her a ride home from work tonight. Well, if she got a ride. But in the evening, she takes a cab again. The next day, the whole situation repeats itself again. I can't follow my wife around indefinitely. I am also at work. In fact, there is no evidence. I have no guarantees that this is not nothing, and I do not do nonsense. In short, again we are sitting at the cottage with a friend, and it has been almost a month. I come to our house and see my son. But Elizabeth doesn't say yes or no. I wouldn't want to talk about it now. Let's get through these days, and then we'll see what and where it takes us. Okay, imagine what I have to do. I mean, there's no reason to get divorced. But it's not a life together under these conditions either. But fortunately, this epic is still over. This same friend calls me and asks the address of the salon where his wife works. "Listen," you said, "it's all so cool and big. Where is it located? I need to buy a gift certificate. And while I'm there, maybe out of your tears I'll talk to you." I gave him that address, the phone number. He called me back 2 hours later and told me his wife wasn't there. 2 counselors are there and no one from the bosses. But it's probably not her shift, I tell him, but my heart is restless. I take the car and go to the house. I come home and there is no one at home. Where is she then? I call her, she doesn't answer. I call her parents, and she's not there either. The time had already come for the evening. I get in the car, go to her work. Drove up, stood far away, waited. 8:00 p.m. comes up. I see Lisa coming out of this salon. And there's a guy next to her, looking maybe 20 or 25. They go to his bad weather expensive and on a stamp. And in fact, they get in. I will not describe my emotions. They were contradictory. Well, on the one hand, at least I knew that my suspicions were not groundless. Well, on the other hand, I wanted to go out and ask questions directly. But luckily I held back at the time. As it turned out, rightly so. I'm sitting here wondering where, in fact, they're going. They drove home. He dropped her off in front of our driveway and left. I immediately picked her up, parked my car right there, and went straight up to our house. Opened the door with my key. She was already on her phone with someone. I took the cell phone out of her hand, and while it was unlocked, I went to her message. For this month, while she's been out here, let's say, walking around, apparently my return wasn't really expected. So all the messages with this young, handsome guy, she did not delete at all. Anyway, I read everything in there. It turns out that in this main office, there is a management office. And this boy is actually, well, he's the son of one of the executives of this network. That's actually why you don't see him going up to her house. They had an office right at work for that. Now I see, that's actually why my friend today, when he came to the jewelry store, he didn't find Lisa at her workplace. The work must have been done in the office. Anyway, I didn't see any tears or sobs that night. She didn't really deny it. On the contrary, she finally told me all the things they'd been thinking about me for the past 2 years. Of course, they remembered that kissed on February 23rd, adding that that was just the tip of the iceberg. And supposedly, there's a bunch more betrayals behind me that she's sure she won't remember and figure out. That's it. Like I said, the whole situation is ambiguous. Somebody could say, it's your own fault. It was you on February 23 kissed that lady. But I don't think that's a big deal. And it's a damn good excuse, and it's not a good excuse on February 23. He always thought his wife was just going to beauty salon treatments to keep her skin in shape. But when he happened to notice intimate treatments being performed right outside their apartment windows. But what he found out made him lose his head and raise a ruckus that all the neighbors in their building remembered. I want to tell you a truly detective story, witnesses, and even participants, which happened to be myself. Saturday evening, I received a phone call from a friend of mine. Where are you? What are you? How are you? Let's see you. We can even talk at my house. Or better yet, let's meet at the store first. I think that without the store, we will not make it here. All right, I got ready, got in a cab, and went to my friend's place. Anyway, after a short conversation, it turned out that he and his wife had had another fight. For the 10th or 20th time this month, I asked him. Approximately yes. And where is she now? I don't know. Turns out they've been having it for a month now. And each time, in order not to make this situation worse, Andrew goes to his office, so that he and his wife alone would blow off steam, cool off, and he goes back to their house the next day or every other day. And little by little everything kind of calms down. But after a while, it's all over again. He leaves the house again. Of course, they disconnect their phones from each other at these moments. And this has been going on for about 5 weeks now. And then it coincided with the weekend. So what do I tell him? And that I did not really want to ruin the weekend today, says Andre. But no matter how hard I tried, we still had a fight. I kind of left again, but then I decided to talk right away and make things work out. Call her. Her phone is off. Came home a couple of hours later. She's not home. Get it? Yeah. So we sat down with him for a while. Finished what we brought from the store. It's outside, but for a second, it's almost 4 o'clock in the morning. I was sitting there feeling that we were starting to sober up a little bit. We had a last drink of tea, and I said I was going home. Otherwise yours will come. And we are sitting in this kind of, well, condition. Moreover, that you have already quarreled, not very much it will look from the outside. Although to return to her husband only in the morning is also not very from the outside. Okay, that's it. Let's go. We said goodbye. I threw on my jacket and went downstairs, standing near their doorway. It's a little cold. It's early spring. I got out on purpose and didn't call a cab. I thought I would take a walk, get some air, have a smoke, but then I would go. I looked and there was no lighter in my pocket. I searched all my pockets and there was definitely no lighter. It seems to be on Andre's balcony. And those back to his 3rd floor, the last thing I wanted now. Moreover, I look out the window. The light at Andrew is not lit, probably asleep. Okay, and I see in their yard, in front of Andrew's new house, there is a car with the lights on, and parked in the so-called second row, but it means kind of came recently, and for sure there is someone inside. I come up in the back, I see the front window is ajar. I said, "Buddy, they're gonna be lighters." He reached for the ceiling light in the car and turned on the interior light. I'm standing outside in the dark and can't see me. I can see the cabin with the lights on pretty well. No one in the passenger seat. It's pushed all the way forward. I hear a lady's voice coming from the back seat. She said to my date, "Okay, I gotta go. I'll call you." And she kissed the driver on the cheek. I leaned over to look, and the lady had already opened kind of the back door, but also kind of on her way out. I looked closer. It's Marinka. I think it's Andrea. I immediately turned my back to them. I hear her get out of the car, slammed the back door, and goes to his entrance, home. That's right. The driver couldn't find a lighter, started the car, and told me that yes, now the cigarette lighter. I was sobered up by such surprises from Marinka, and I thought that I should make friends with this friend. I wonder if it's a brother or some colleague at work, and now I'll take Andrew, although why would she then was a colleague to kiss something? Okay, I hear it, and his car chain noise. Well, when he started the car, I could hear it under the hood. And I said to him, "That's the chain, they have a problem area." Yes, we allegedly, when we worked in the service, in the non-existent, when we came often on these. The owners often thought that the matter was moving towards a full-blown engine overhaul. But it turned out not. He tells me, yes, and I was getting kind of wary too. So, back and forth, we talked a little bit. I said, "That's it, I should go home. It's time." "Which way are you going now?" He told me the direction. I told him I was going that way too. "Let's go. Let's go. Do you mind if I sit in the back? They're going to stop the smell of alcohol and all that." Okay. I get in the back. I see the front passenger seat is definitely in an unnatural position for him. It's too far forward. Anyway, we're driving along. We're talking. I'm telling him about his date. Pretty girl, you know. Got a girlfriend. He says she's got a lot of things. Are we laughing? Okay. I run my left hand over the back seat, and I feel like there's nothing there. I look, and we're pretty far gone. I think it's time for me to get out, too. Okay, there's a junction coming up, I tell them. And after the stop I came all. Turned on my phone flashlight. I look, and on the floor directly behind the driver's seat is a hairbrush. Obviously not a man's. But I think, let it be evidence if everything is confirmed. And if it doesn't, I'll call and I'll give it back. We exchanged phone numbers with the driver. He said if there was a problem with the engine, he could call. I went out and called my friend, to whom the wife returned in the morning. Andreyuka did not pick up the phone. I took a cab back to the house. The next day, Andreyuka called back himself, but there was no sensation. I told him about how last night I had fun investigating the alleged cheating, and that I even have proof of a sort, but it turned out that Marinka herself took and told him. I got home at about 5 o'clock in the morning. Andreyuka there in an unsuitable state for such a conversation. In short, as a result, they and his friends, all what they think and everything as it is said. That's pretty much it. The only really unpleasant thing about this story is that there is no consistency. First, they should have broken up, and then they should have thrown their calms, walking around at least until morning. If you like this story, don't forget to rate it and give it a like. Thank you for watching.